I've been in a bra making rabbit hole for months now. I researched how they are constructed, what shapes there are, how does the sizing actually work, what types of underwires there are, what kind of elastics and fabrics are being used, why this thing is in here, and the history behind keeping the boubage in place. I made countless prototypes, tried them on, and after staring at my cleavage for thousands of hours, analyzing the shape those bras create, I realized that bra making is an art form. I want to share what I learned in the process, and I will be making an underwire bra for the set next, but I want to start with something ultra comfortable. Now, if I think of a comfortable, soft, wireless bra, something along these lines pops into my mind. The cups are usually made out of very stretchy, knitted material like jersey. They give some support but barely any structure, are often seamless and give a kind of naked look underneath clothes. They are a bit dull looking for my taste, but I want to make a deep dive into these in the future. Then there are these types of brassieres, which are usually very pretty. Something like this is very often paired with the ruffled briefs I made previously. But I'd put them in the decoration category since they barely give any support or structure, so I find them kind of unnecessary. And this is not going to be an easy, quick triangle bra. I want to make something of quality that will last me for a very long time and I'd love to wear. And for me personally, if I am going to wear a bra, it better give me some lift and support and structure. The priority for this one was to make me feel effortlessly comfortable, put together and chic, but also not too decorative and crazy so that it won't give harsh lines and essentially seem as barely there underneath clothes. I'm calling it the no makeup bra. As you can imagine, I struggled quite a bit with the design for it to suit all those needs, but also to match the set in general. I want for all the pieces to be in tone with each other, and especially the ruffled briefs, since they are also mostly in the comfy bracket. The ruffliness to me is a reference to the drapiness of fabrics on antique statues, so I looked for inspiration in the fashions of the late 18th, early 19th centuries. There was the rediscovery of the city of Pompeii, among other things, sparking this renewed interest in ancient Roman culture, but at the same time there was an intellectual movement that was taking place which would revive Greek idea of democracy. In regards to fashion, the clothes would mimic these ancient sculptures, these seemingly draped naked bodies, even the hatwear. And as for the body, the fashion tried to mimic this typical ideal antique body type. Now, some women did have this body type, and in some paintings it seems that they were in fact naked under those clothes. There are even some records, which I'll just treat as rumors, but nonetheless, apparently some women did moisten the fabric to reveal their bodies underneath the clothes even better, and allegedly a few of them even gotten sick and died. As fashion for clothes changes, so does the fashion for the shape of the body. And this body type has specific proportions and projects certain youthfulness and softness. But aside from youthfulness, not everyone's tissue is even shaped like this. So women would wear different types of underwear that would form the body according to current fashions. Stays may look like corsets to us, but they are a bit different. One can say that stays are a kind of precursor to corsets. They are themselves softer, but in the middle one would insert a busk, this wooden stick for posture, which also could be taken out for ease at home, for example. But the busk placed here and the straps positioned at the sides would make the boubage point outwards, which would exaggerate an hourglass shape. I think this positioning is interesting for context, but I am more interested in the way the dresses are being overlapped in the middle in this drapey way. I also found some pictures of this brassiere type vest, which I find very inspiring, and I also like the design of the straps on the stays, which I will loosely reference in my bra. As with the other pieces in this set, I am working with silk satin, which is not stretchy. And basically my idea is that the lining of the cups will shape and support the tissue with the help of darts, while the outer part is going to look draped over it. So if you want to join me and make your version of this bra for your own measurements, as with the other pieces, I actually sat down and made a PDF with detailed instructions on how I constructed this pattern. It is free and the link is in the description. Don't be afraid of making your own patterns. It will help you to actually understand what's happening. This one is fairly easy, and in my opinion, since you know your body best and your preferences best, who'd better to do that than you? Because there are so many different breast shapes in general, and it is even fairly common that one of them has a different size and is tilted in a slightly different way. When examining your tissue and working on a mock-up, try to analyze where it is mostly concentrated. Is it more towards the middle or the armpits? Are they pointing outwards, up or down? Is the fullness distributed evenly, or is it more concentrated at the bottom? And the position of the darts depends on your shape and also on how you want to distribute your soft tissue. For example, positioning them here would make this part of the cup sort of flat and push the breast to the middle. Positioning the darts more towards the middle lifts the tissue in the center. My fullness is mostly concentrated on the outskirts of my chest, so I'm trying to lift it and position slightly towards the center. When closing your darts, try to sew them in a concave line. Knot the ends and let them loose rather than closing the seam with the machine. This will make the lines as soft as possible. When pressing the cups, do it over something round. I'm using the cup of this biscuit box, which I covered with fabric. Also, if you are pressing something into a shape, let it cool down before you proceed. For the ruffles on the outer cups, I tried out a few different positions, and for me the most flattering I find was towards the middle where the cups overlap. Now the grain line for the cups goes that way, which means that the stretch here gives some space for the breast tissue. This part here shouldn't stretch because it needs to pull the cup towards the middle. But since I'm working with a woven fabric and a fairly light one as well, I am going to place this super thin foam thingy in between the layers. While many dismiss it as padding, trying to avoid it at any cost, thinking it will lay on, it actually gives some extra help to support the fabric and initially the soft tissue placed inside the fabric. I explained how I construct the pattern for the foamy thing in the PDF, but here's also a visual representation. You basically rotate the pattern around the darts of the inner cup piece and then mark a curved line from where the strap is positioned. I add 1 cm seam allowance here at the bottom, and I just cut it out and secure it to the inner part of the cups with a few stitches. By leveling it, you can see the shape it creates. So straps hold the breast tissue to a degree, but I think too many people rely on the straps for support, pulling them far too tight. The support that the strap gives depends on its position, and this position also affects the overall shape, the distribution of the soft tissue. As I already mentioned, on stays they are positioned further out because it is mostly structured down here. But since this bra is not structured in the same way, what I learned is the strap is there to hold the fabric of the cup itself, not necessarily the tissue that is placed in there. For best support, you can position them to the cup where the center of the breast is. Try out different positions when doing your mock-up. You can simply cut off the straps of an old bra for that. In my experience, you need a certain amount of elasticity to allow for some flexibility, which is why I want to make this part of the straps elastic. And to reference my inspiration, I am going to make this part of the strap a bit wider. This is also going to be the adjustable part. I want the straps to be 1.5 cm wide, so I'm cutting out strips of fabric that are 5 cm wide in total, and the length I measured loosely on myself while wearing the mock-up, which is 50 centimeters in my case. Then I sew them together on the wrong sides, leaving 1 centimeter seam allowance, and turn them inside out by knotting a thread here and pulling the needle through. I think that silk straps add a lot of comfort to the whole bra wearing experience. And I feel like a well-made bra will last for a very long time, so I'm trying not to rush any steps and give it as much quality as I can. I just took out these strap sliders out of an old bra, and I'm placing the end of the strap through the middle part and secure it with a very narrow zigzag stitch. Now I'm putting the ring through and thread the strap through here. I learned at some experience difficulties with adjustable silk straps because they would slide around easier. This might be due to pulling too much on the strap. I never had this problem, but you can obviously skip that and just use a regular bra elastic instead. I'm threading my elastic through the ring and secure it with a narrow zigzag stitch as well, trying to level them identically. The length I use is 10 centimeters. This is again an individual preference and a number I figured out while making the mock-up. The position of the strap is marked here on the pattern, so I'm placing it upside down on the right side of the inner cup. Now we're going to secure the cup pieces together, and this is the part I struggled with a lot while working on my prototypes, because if done incorrectly this might give these infamous bra lines underneath clothes. I tried many different types of stitches. I tried putting an elastic in between, and since it is the nature of silk satin to move and stretch out in all directions, here's my solution on getting the best finish. First, I sew them together next to the seam allowance with a white stitch, and then I'm pulling on the thread to form the fabric. This is an important step because this seam needs to be on tense. This seam needs to be tense. And now that it's shaped, I am sewing them together properly at the seam allowance. Check whether your strap is on the right side and that the seam looks neat overall. I will now take out the gathering thread and cut the whole thing down. I am turning the cups to the right side and pulling the seam flat with my fingers and then pressing it. Now top stitching very close to the edge of the seam. This is also initial for achieving smooth lines. Feel with your fingers that this top stitch is also securing the foamy thing here. This marks in your pattern show where the cups should overlap. And I'm securing this whole entourage with a stitch close to the edge. Now let's talk about the band for a second. On a modern bra, this is the part that holds 80% of the weight, apparently, so it needs to be very strong and durable. And if done correctly, it also pulls here, so that the cups sit much more closely to the body and actually support the breast tissue. This makes it partly responsible for the shape as well, and this is why I don't really like these triangle bra types. For a long time it was the job of the corsets to basically hold all of this, and they were constructed so that all the weight would be evenly distributed at the upper body. Not with bras though, all the support and weight is being held by this comparably tiny strap, and for it to actually work it needs to be extremely snug to the body, so much so that it won't slide around when you're moving. I want my band to be lined, and for extra support I am using this mesh fabric. I was initially thinking of using linen because of its properties, but my sewing machine is rather temperamental, so because of all those layers I opted for this thin net instead. Now I am going to connect all of this together one by one, taking my time. First the outer part of the band to the right side of the cups, connecting all the markings. Make sure to leave the 1 cm seam allowance at the top. And since those curves go in opposite, you'd need to cut a few short snips for it to connect smoothly. And then the net. Then I'm stitching it loosely on the machine. I'm also going to connect the straps to the band at this point. I decided to position mine next to the closure, so I'm sewing them upside down with the seam allowance in mind. Before we connect the lining and do steps that are irreversible, this is the point to try it on, second check the fit, and also to make sure that the closure works as it should. So for closure we often use this type of hook and eye thingies. I didn't know that, but when you buy a new bra you're actually supposed to hook it on the last ones, and then with time, when the elastic stretches out, you're supposed to take the next one and then the next one. Now my design for the closure is actually considered bad practice since you don't have that option. I want to use a hook and elastic straps. For me it is an aesthetic decision and I just find them easier to handle. And honestly, if I'm going to wear something where my bra will show underneath, I just like it to look polished and pretty as if it's not a bra at all. Also, it's an I thought to confuse the people who are used to different types of closures, but I also do that with a thought in mind that I just open the seam again and adjust or change the strap if needed. If you don't want that, you can also choose to combine these closures like so. I already tried out different lengths for the band and the elastics on my prototypes, but to figure it out you'd have to try it out on a mock-up. Sew on your elastic on the right side at the seam allowance, put a hook through on the side you prefer, and then try it on and pull to find the right and comfortable length for you. Depending on the distance here, it can happen that the elastic will gather the fabric here. So I'm securing this rather thick and firm elastic with a zigzag stitch onto the seam allowance to give it some hold. Since I second checked everything, I'm going to secure the lining to the cups, making sure everything is smooth and that nothing is stuck in the way. And now I am going to sew it together for real. I am cutting the foamy thing back, taking out all of the unnecessary stuff. Secure your strap beforehand so that it lies in the right angle and where it should be. And also secure the closure. I can close the upper seam of the band now on the wrong side. These corners need to be cut down like so, that's how I learned it at least. To make them extra sharp, you can also use a pin to pull out the fabric. Now try it on, see if everything works before closing the last seam. Another thing I learned is that putting on a bra is kind of a ceremony. You basically have to scoop and swoop everything into position, and that can also affect the fit. There are many different ways to finish this line. You can top stitch it, for example, or use a bias band. I'm going with the easiest option, using an elastic, which will be purely decorative but also to complement the other briefs in this set. First securing it with a zigzag stitch close to the picot edge, turning it over and securing again. I'm just cutting off the edge here and secure them with a very narrow zigzag stitch. So as for decorations, bows or buttons are usually used to hide this stitch here. To match my initial inspiration and also because I think it's a nice cheeky option for when you feel like it, I am going to add this spaghetti strap to the rings. I also place a button here to wrap it around and connect it to the other strap. This is what it looks like finished. It's super comfortable, it fits quite well. Everything stays where it should, but it still feels flexible. It looks soft underneath clothes, but doesn't look too bland. There are lines forming because of the pulling here, and the drapiness overall is a bit uncontrolled, but I don't mind, I'm okay with that. It's not perfect, but it's honest work. And having silk inside the cups, it's nice. I'm going to make an underwire bra and talk about cup sizes and all those things in my next video. Bye!